Welcome back to another episode of Under 450K, where we go through suburbs that I can find for under $450,000 where you can possibly invest your money in. Now, this is a bit of a different episode. I'm not finding one of those suburbs, but I'm looking at a case study, and that suburb is Armadale. If you haven't been living under a rock and you take sort of property investing seriously, then you will have known about Armadale, and you would have known about the significant growth it has experienced in the last year, 2, 3 years. It has grown immensely. So Armadale is a suburb southeast of Perth. It's about a 35-minute drive away from the city CBD, even sometimes a bit quicker. It's a very interesting suburb because it's pretty much on the outskirts of the larger Perth area and right next to a lot of green foresty bushland as well. So it's right next to a lot of developable supply, and you can sort of see gaps as well in between throughout other suburbs and between the Perth CBD. To sum up, this suburb is on everyone's or literally in every investor's dream suburb of what you want to invest in and then experience the growth of it as well. And a lot of East Coast investors have come in and bought properties through Armadale and other parts of Perth CBD, but there are a lot of also owner occupiers buying in Armadale as well. And I wanted to go through the list of reasons of why Armadale had experienced such growth and also why you shouldn't actually invest in Armadale anymore. And there's a couple of reasons for that. So like all my previous videos so far, I just want to go through the data objectively and actually show you how it is such a hot market and that you'll be fighting tooth and nail for trying to secure an investment property in a suburb like Armadale. I'm going to go to BoomScore. I usually use DSR data because that is generally more accurate than these free resources online. So if we have a look at Armadale, we can see one of the biggest trends that we always look at is days on market. 28 days, it's virtually selling in less than a month. So when you list a property, it's selling less than a month. And to be honest, it's actually selling a lot quicker than that. Some properties are being sold literally a couple days after it's being listed. A lot of investors and a lot of property owners are actually buying it off market. So even before it hits the listing on sites like Domain and Real Estate, these properties are being sold already. So when it's 28 days, you are in a very hotly intense market. And look, I want to show you for comparison, right? If we look up Townsville, which is another pretty popular suburb where people are investing at this very moment in regional Queensland. All right, let me look at a suburb near Townsville, right? If we look at a suburb in Townsville, we can see that the days on market is around 65 days, right? But this is still a very popular suburb where people are actually investing at this very moment in time. But when we look at Armadale, it's at 28 days, which is just incredibly low. You are in a fierce hot market, right? It says it's a seller's market. It is a seller's market, but that's when capital growth generally occurs. We can see stock on market is very low at 1.48% and even sometimes even lower than that. Gross yield is still incredibly high at 6%, right? So you can almost break even or a bit less than break even when you put a 12% deposit in because interest rates are so high at this moment. Almost every property on a 12% deposit is literally negatively geared at this stage. And vendor discounting is minus 6%. Trust me, this is incorrect. I've talked to real estate agents in the area. People are offering $10,000, $20,000 more than the listing price because that's what you have to do to secure a property in a very hot market. You have no other choice but to do that. And we want to let me just verify this with another source, right? HTAG is another source that you can go check out. Their stock on market 0.74, so even less. Inventory will last only for 1 month. That's barely enough time. Days on market 30 days, very similar. Vacancy rate extremely low at 0.9%, and building approvals also very low. So all of these data, right, these key data of supply and demand metrics already indicate that Armadale is a very, very hot market. So investors who are looking to go in and purchase in Armadale at this very moment are going to have to fight tooth and nail for a property in this area. Now, I want to look at Armadale and just have a look at some of the listings, right? I had to put under 700K because if I put under $450,000, you're basically going to get nothing. Nothing in this area. I mean, this is a townhouse and people can't even put listings up properly. One's already under offer. I doubt that's anything, right? So there's nothing under 450K, nothing under 500,000 really. You're really going to have to start around 600,000. And there's a couple of properties that come up, but these aren't investment grade properties, right? You're really having to look around the 600 to 700K mark. If you have $600,000, then you can probably get away buying something in Armadale. But even then, it's going to be a very highly contested market. Because if we have a look at this, it's already under offer, right? But this is what you would say is a better sort of investment grade property. This time last year, you could buy the same property for about 400K. Or sorry, this time 2 years ago, around 400K, or maybe an year and a half ago, around $400,000. And the best way I can show you this is by actually looking at SQM research. It's a free resource, guys. You should definitely be going to verify your data and looking at property data through this website, right? It's very good in my opinion. So 6612, 12-month change. It's grown by 20% already. Over the last 3 years, it's grown about 13% per year, so around 36%, but I actually think it's more, and I'll have to show you. So in 2022, May, we can see prices were around under $450,000, right? The people who bought here, right? They don't really know whether or not Armadale would have turned out a very good suburb or not. But the people here would have started to realize the trends were going in the right directions. The days on markets, the stock on market, the average vendor discounting were all going in the right direction for such a big property boom. And if you were to purchase property here, you would have done very, very well for yourself. Unfortunately, I also personally missed out on Armadale just because I didn't have the deposit ready at that time. But my friend who bought it for around $350,000, a property in Armadale, has seen immense growth in his property. He has done extremely well for himself. I'm very happy for him. Right? And the reason, and we don't want to look at that, right? I'm going to actually get into why you shouldn't be investing in Armadale anymore. When we look at On the House, which is another free resource, you can go check it out. You can see that in 2022, they had 13% growth. Sorry, in 21, they had 20% growth. That's COVID year. Don't worry about that. In 2022, 13% growth. 2023, 14% growth. And in 2024, 47% growth, right? So altogether, you have about almost 70 to 80% of growth over the last 3 years. So what that is saying to you as an investor, right? You have already missed out on close to 80% of growth in the past 3 years. So why would you go buy property there, right? So there's two things. One, you're already buying in a very hotly contested market. So you're probably overpaying for your property by a little bit, and you've already missed out on 80% growth. So you are not in the bottom of the market anymore. As a smart investor, you have to decide whether or not you should enter the market at that point. Armadale is a very good, well built up suburb, right? There is still pockets of areas where there is a lot of development available, like around here, but that's a different suburb entirely. But when we look at Armadale itself, a lot of these free detached houses are sitting on large blocks of land throughout the city. It has its own shopping center with a lot of main shopping centers like JB Hi-Fives, Targets, Kohl's. So it's all got its main resources, and it's got 2 shopping centers. Another good trend to look at as well, by the way, is ABS data. ABS data is good because it's kind of backdated as well. Because when we look at the 2021 census data, we can actually see in 2021, right, when we go down to the sort of work employment occupations there are, the largest one is professional workers, 17.8%. Generally, what you find is that suburbs with higher percentage of profession, and generally what you find is that with suburbs with a higher professional worker force will generally lead in capital growth. Right, they also have higher wage increases as time goes on, which will allow them to buy and upgrade into more property prices. And look, before I go any further discussing Armadale as a suburb, I do want to raise your attention to my newsletter that I release a weekly article every single week about suburbs that could be amazing for investment. Under 450K is a newsletter that will allow and notify you of suburbs that are coming up for investment, also suburbs that you should stay away from and that you shouldn't look at all throughout. And I recently started this and I want you to go subscribe. It is completely for free and it provides immense value for you as a reader and as a potential investor. This article is designed for young professionals between the age of 25 to 30 who have a deposit saved up but can't buy a property in Sydney, who want to invest their money into property because they know that property is the game in Australia to succeed in. So you should definitely go subscribe. It is completely free. Now, there's other parts of Armadale that you want to go through, and I want to look at its economic profile. As part of its economic profile, we can look at its businesses by industry and see whether it is a diversified economy or not. Right, I like to just look at the numbers, and we can see that it is a pretty diversified economy, from transport, postal to warehousing, to as well as professional services, construction, and healthcare as well as sort of its main driving forces in economy. And one of the other stats that I also like to look at is the like sort of the employed people. What do? And we can see that one of the largest workforces is professional work, almost 17.8%, and then comes sort of the laborers and tradies and trade workers at similar sort of percentages as well. And generally what you find is that in suburbs with higher percentage of professionals, you will generally find that there is more capital growth in suburbs like that, and it is one of the leading drivers of capital growth. So if you're watching this video and you're sort of a young investor looking to take your money and invest it into a suburb in Australia or a regional suburb in Australia, there are still plenty of suburbs out there where you can put your money to work to help you get onto the property ladder, right? There are still a lot of things like that I haven't covered, like Melbourne, regional Sydney, regional Brisbane, and I'll get more into those details. So please subscribe down below for more property content and more suburbs.